Taoiseach, in respect of an Garda Síochána, in recent weeks the public has been informed of the rampant financial mismanagement in Templemore, the potential bugging of the political opponent of a minister, highly unusual leasing arrangements between the OPW and a Garda-owned golf club, and the widespread distribution of a video of a young woman in a distressed state by a serving Garda, apparently for amusement. Yet these are only a fraction of the scandals that have enveloped the force under this government, this Commissioner and this Minister. The scale of the maladministration, incompetence and potential corruption which has come to light is absolutely staggering. It is obvious why public confidence in the force is in tatters, but it is shocking that those in authority seem completely oblivious to this. Instead, you and your government colleagues attack anyone who attempts to bring these failures to light. Regardless of whether or not the Commissioner was informed of the issues in Templemore in a 2-hour briefing or a quick chat over tea, her responsibility under the Garda Síochána Act is abundantly clear. It beggars belief to claim that informing the Minister of these issues was a matter of judgment. The Commissioner's failure to notify the Minister for 15 months was a complete dereliction of statutory responsibility to keep the Minister fully informed and, as the Act says, of any significant developments that might reasonably be expected to adversely affect public confidence in the Garda Síochána. The fact that the Taoiseach appears to think this is a political attack on her, that raising these issues is to ramp up the pressure on her as Minister, as she said, is quite frankly the height of arrogance. It speaks to a minister well aware that the removal of the previous Garda Commissioner set in motion the chain of events which led to the end of her predecessor's time in ministerial office, and it's looking very much as if history is going to repeat itself, Minister. But this is not about one Justice Minister or one Commissioner. It is about a systemic dysfunctionality deeply rooted in one of the most vital organs of the state. No one here is looking for a head on a plate for the sake of it. What we want is real reform, but it needs to happen now, not after a commission of inquiry or another review. There was a time when at the time of the setting up of the Charlton inquiry, when it would have been sufficient for the Commissioner to step aside without prejudice. But that time is gone. What is desperately needed now is a change in culture that can only come about if the Commissioner and the senior management team is changed. That is what is required. Taoiseach, can you explain why you will not join with all members on this side of the House who have come to the absolute conclusion that we cannot continue under the present regime with a Commissioner and a senior management team that does not understand the principles involved in accountability and being answerable to the public?
Thank you, Deputy Shortall. You raised questions about potential corruption, you raised questions about bugging, you raised questions about accountability, and you raised the most distressing issue of all, which was the video of a young woman who is no longer with us. And to her family and all of that, we share their grief and their tragedy, and that matter is being investigated as a matter of urgency by the Gardaí. If I understand from reports that this was taken on off a mobile phone, you make your point about that. Now, you made the point here about bugging, which is an issue that is of particular importance. And I've read the newspaper reports on this, but see, there's a designated judge, as you're well aware, Deputy Shortall, who deals with the question of listening to particular individuals. And you don't comment about any of these cases because they're very small in number. But I have the last report here in front of me from Mr. Justice Paul McDermott of the 10th of November last year, and he says On the 27th of October, I attended at the Office of the Department of Justice and Equality. I met with officials who made available to me documents and records relating to the operations of the Acts, as requested. I examined the files and the records furnished and spoke to the officials responsible for the operation of the Acts and liaising with other authorities in respect of same. All documents requested by me were furnished, and all questions posed by me in relation to the files and records produced were answered to my satisfaction. On the 27th of October, I attended at the headquarters of Garda Síochána. I met with officers and personnel responsible for the operation of the above Acts. I examined computer records and hard copy files relating to the above Acts, which were made available for my inspection, and all documents and records which I requested were furnished and examined. All questions posed by me in relation to the operation of the Acts and the documents and records produced were answered to my satisfaction. And he concludes, I am satisfied, having examined the records and the documents produced to me, and from the information conveyed to me at these meetings, that the relevant state authorities are in compliance with the provision of the above Acts as of the date of this report. Now, what you are referring to in respect of allegations of bugging goes back quite a number of years. I don't have the date. But obviously there was a situation here where you had, changes of different ministers for justice for quite a long time. So, in respect of bugging, this is a very serious matter, and the Minister for Justice of the day is not in a position to order that an individual be eavesdropped upon by telecommunications without having an official of the Department of Justice verify in the first instance that that complies with the Act and that it's overseen by the High Court judge who has responsibility for this. So there are a lot of stuff around in the ether that I'd like to know facts about. The case that you mentioned, as you understand it, was a case that went to the court, not for bugging or for eavesdropping, but for personal injuries. There was a different matter, and this was an element of it. Be that as it may, it is a very serious allegation. But I'm just giving you the end result of the last judge's report on compliance with the Act, insofar as the Department of Justice were concerned, and the Department and on Garda Síochána, where all of the evidence, all of the files, all of the computers were made available, and all of the questions answered to the satisfaction of the judge. Finally, I might say, the Commissioner of Garda Síochána is the accounting officer for the vote of the Gardaí. And in this case, this Commissioner is responsible to the Public Accounts Committee for dealing with that vote. And that matter is being investigated by the Public Accounts Committee, and it is not for me or for you to interfere with the work of that committee. In law, the Commissioner is responsible to the PAC as the accounting officer for Garda Síochána for that vote, and we should let them go, and we should let them do their work. So, finally, I'll say to you, in respect of your comment about dysfunctionality, this very morning, the Government approved the Commission on the Future of Policing in Ireland with very detailed terms of reference and a list of people who have great experience both in the law, in policing and in other elements of society. And this is not a report that's being asked for in 15 months. This is a rolling report where this Commission can make recommendations which the Government will act on a regular basis. In other words, as recommendations come in, they can be dealt with by Government, instead of waiting a full 15 or 18 months for a final report to come in. As the recommendations come through in respect of policing, and the terms of reference are very detailed and very exact and very good, I have to say, and I think that that's going to give a different impetus to the way the Guards and the culture has evolved. Finally, let me say, the Independent Policing Authority the other day made an appointment as a new Assistant Commissioner of a policeman whom I happen to know from his work in the North Inner City, the kind of person you would be very proud to have appointed by an independent body, an independent group, in doing his work in very difficult circumstances over the last number of years. You shake your head. Maybe you don't agree. But the fact of the matter is that no senior appointment to the Gardaí in future will be made by anything to do with any commissioner or anything to do with any government, but by an independent police authority, which is the way that it should be.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Shortall.
Taoiseach, that is simply not good enough. You're hiding behind the PAC. There is no official investigation going on within the PAC. They're looking at this issue. There's no official investigation. It doesn't prevent you from acting and doing what you should be doing if you take your political responsibilities seriously. And rather than going off on a tangent, Taoiseach, you might respond to the very fundamental issues that I've raised in relation to political responsibility on your part and on the part of the Minister for Justice. Look, we cannot wait for the results of yet another investigation or another review or another commission of inquiry, while the Garda force continues to implode before our very eyes. It's clear that the upper echelons of the Gardaí are too embedded in the current unhealthy and unaccountable culture to do their job properly. The only way we will address the core failings of the Gardaí is to appoint a new team. We cannot continue with the regime where it seems the objective is to obfuscate and to defend the indefensible. While discipline in the Gardaí is neglected, where morale continues to fall and where public confidence in the rule of law is at an all-time low.
Thank you, Deputy.
We must have action, Taoiseach, from either you or the Minister for Justice. Do what needs to be done and stop obfuscating.
Can you conclude now briefly, Taoiseach, please?
Well, you see, you make your comment now and you don't say what you want. You said before that you weren't looking for anybody's head, that you're talking about dysfunctionality, and then you say do what you're supposed to do. Well, the fact of the matter is that Taoiseach accepts political responsibility for her actions here. All of the recommendations, Deputy Shortall, all of the recommendations of the interim report on Templemore have been implemented by this Commissioner. This is the Commissioner who has referred this to the Public Accounts Committee, to whom she is responsible as accounting officer. She is accountable as accounting officer for her vote of Garda Síochána. And while you say it's not being investigated, the PAC considered this the other day and considered whether they should expedite their analysis of all the reports that they have received. So the changes that have been made are fundamental, and it does take some time for a change of culture to evolve in an organisation like Garda Síochána. And you will find, Deputy Shortall, that over a period of time, as the independent policing authority makes its senior appointment, both civilian and from the force or to the force, the public will have increased confidence and trust because of the way the nature and the culture of the Gardaí will change.
Thank you,
yes, of course there have been difficulties, and so many, not just now. You talk about bugging earlier on, about a time back in the 2000s, apparently, in the early 2000s, but I don't have evidence of that. I'm giving you the changed nature of what's happened here from the report of just Paul Anthony McDermott in respect of bugging, which you made, the comment that you made earlier on.
Thank you very much, Taoiseach. That concludes Leaders' Questions.